We're here to solve this Arrow Sudoku puzzle by Ashish Kumar. It has a Cipher variation on top of it, which means across these 5 letters, we've got 2 A's, 2 B's, 2 D's. Those will have the same numbers within them, and C and E have to be distinct from that set as well. So we're going to run into those constraints as we go through the solve. I think the first spot that my eye is drawn to is, and it's rare in arrow puzzles, but is this cell where the A is in the top row, and that's because it's both a circle. So it's got to be a pretty large value to be able to be a sum, but it's also along a long arrow, so it's got to be pretty small to be able to be part of the sum. So let's start from the high end. If A is any larger than 6, there's no way this works. 6 plus 1 plus 2 is 9, so that's a kind of top level constraint for the cell. Smallest way an arrow sum can be if it's 2 cells in size would be a 3, but 3 is already in that box. 4 would have to be 1 plus 3, and 3 is already in that box, so A looks to be 5 or 6. So I think the first thing we'll mark is this. If this is 5 or 6, then the remaining sum here has to be either 3 or 4. We're going to get to a maximum of 8 or 9 possible. 5, 1 plus 3, 5, 1 plus 2, 6, 1 plus 2 are going to be all the values there. Notice that a 1 is absolutely in one of these 2 cells to make these clues work together. A 1 in these cells is going to track all the way to the right side of the grid, where on this arrow we can't have a 1 from the left and we can't have a 2 from the box, so this is going to have digits 3 or larger. That's going to mean that this B is at least 7, could be 8 or 9. And we've got another B in the grid, so we're going to link back to the center and say this is 7, 8, or 9. And so I think this is a lot of the star of the puzzle that I see. And we're now setting up something new in the center. So let's look at the poker face in the middle here. We've got A as a small value. So typically when we've got a box that has everything within arrow cells, we're very concerned about the largest values. They've got to be in some of these circles. And for sure, the digit 9 has to be in one of those circles. And you can ask, can a 9 go with an 8? Well, I guess in this space, only one of these 3 large digits is going to be seen. So another way to think about this is that 7, 8, 9 is going to be here, 7, 8, 9 is going to be here, and 7, 8, 9 is somewhere along this arrow. And so actually this can't be a 7, this can't be a 9. So there's some way this is the thing we're really looking at and thinking through this puzzle. And again, recognizing we've got to place a large digit here and then the other 2 large digits in this space, because you can only get one of these 3 along this arrow, and they're all larger than what's in A. Now if we actually look at one of these specific choices, if this is 7, that means this will be 9 with 8, and we're going to need to get a 1 in this space, and 1, 2, 4 is always the sum of 7, so we're going to need to get 2 1s. So constraint after you know that you've got 3 large digits, and they're in the spaces, is that we for sure have the 7 in this spot, and again the 8 or 9 will be out. So you can mark this into the grid. 8, 9, 8, 9 add up to 17, which means these 5 cells also add up to 17, so we have 34 in these 7 cells. The sum from 1 to 9 is 45, which means there are 11 left over in these cells, so if this is 5 or 6, this is 6 or 5. The circle will be larger than the sum on the arrow, so 6 is to the right, 5 is here, 1 is below. That's going to let the math here fully work out. With this being a 6, this other A is a 6, which now means that this cell, which can't be a 1 or 3, could be 2, 4, 5. This value will then be 1, 2, 4. If this is a 6, though, this coming across is 1 and 2 with a 9, so the 2 is eliminated here, which means the top is 4, 5, the bottom is 1, 2. Coming back to the right, 6 is now eliminated from these cells. We already had the B from the center as not a 7, so this is 8 or 9. Notice that the max sum across these is 4, 5 equals 9, but there's a 4, 5 here. We actually have a triple, 3, 4, 5 across these cells. So this will have a 3, and it'll have a 4 or a 5. The only way to get to one of these values would be 3 with 5 to get to an 8. And that's going to put a 4 over here, put in a 2, make this a 1, make this a 2. The remaining cells in this row are 7 and 8, 7 on the right, 8 here to work with this. The 8 from the B, or the 8 eliminating here, puts an 8 in the cell, puts a 9 in the cell. We get 2s, sorry, this should be a note, 2, 7, 2, 7. A 1 is going to come up in this cell, and over here, 3, 4 are left for the 8 arrow. So I think this is very good progress, and gets us set to think about the next placements. And we now actually have 2 digits that are removed from arrows, which are 6 and 8. And so my guess is if we go to one of the more constrained spots, we can find an arrow that now has very few choices for it. So let's look at C. And we're going to look at C because it's in a column that already has 4 and 2 used. So it doesn't have a lot of small digits left. And actually, if we went to the smallest sum, a 3 can't work because 1 plus 2 is gone. Even a value like 5 can't work because 1 plus 4 and 2 plus 3 are gone. So the smallest this looks like it can be is a 6, but 6 is here. Next value is a 7, but 7 is in this pair in the center box, so eliminated there. Got an 8, but an 8's already in D, so there's only one value for C, which is a 9. And if this is a 9, what values can sum up to it? It looks like 1 and 8 and 3 and 6 are the only two values that remain because 2, 7, 4, 5 are eliminated from the clues above. 6 and 8 are in these cells, so we only have a 1 or 3 choice down here, which will pair with an 8 or 6, depending on which value comes through. We can now come down to D, and D is going to be the same on both sides and be influenced by the digits around it. Let's come from the top down in this case. We have 9, 8 already eliminated, 7 already eliminated, and 6 eliminated. So D has to be 5, 4, 3 just to be able to valid sum in 2 cells and able to work. 4 is already in this column, so it's now down to just 3 and 5. And if this is 3, notice that now this cell is a 1, this cell is a 2, and 1 plus 2 is no longer valid for that box. So 3 is also eliminated. And so D is going to resolve to be just 5. The only small digit left for this whole column is a 1, 3. And putting that in will mean that the cell to the right is a 4 or a 2 to pair with the 1, 3. And that sum over here, placing this 5, will resolve the top row, 5 with 3. Leaves behind a 1, 4 sum. This space now has 2, 6, 7, 8 to go in it, and we're going to need at least that smallest value of 2 somewhere in here. We can have a 6 or a 7 to finish this out. That would put an 8, 9 here. There'll always be a 9 in one of those cells. So this looks like good progress. We now have everything but the E arrow marked, so let's come to this. And this now can't be a 9, 8, 6, or 5 based on the arrows already in the grid that say the other letters being used. So it's now 3, 4, 7. If this is a 3, it's going to conflict with all versions to the left here because it'd be 3, 1, 2. That eliminates numbers. If this is 4 with 1, 3, it also conflicts with all values here. So this is forced to be a 7. And now we have to still even think about how do these clues interact. And sometimes 7 has 3 different ways you can split its sum up, 1, 6, 2, 5, 3, 4. But regardless of which of the set the 5 takes, 2 of those 3 will be removed. So for instance, this is 1 and 4, then the only set that remains is 2, 5. And if this is 2, 3, the only set that remains is 1, 6. One thing to note then is across these 4 cells, you'll always use the digit 1, you'll always use the digit 2. And 2 is going to be pretty key because it's going to influence this cell. So this is another sneaky deduction, but let's sort of go back through it. If this is 2, 3, it's already eliminating a 2 here. If this is 1, 4, then the only value for this arrow is 2, 5. That again has a 2, eliminates it here. And so this lower right corner cell cannot be a 2. It now is left to only be able to be a 6 because of all the other values being eliminated. So it can't be a 7 because it's in that row. It can't be a 9 because it's on the top arrow and everything else is up above. So this is a conclusive elimination. Where this arrow needed a small value, it's now forced to come there. So that's the 2. 7, 9 is going to be across these cells. This sum is an 8. We've got the 6 placed in the grid, which means this can't be 1, 6. So this now, when we said before that 2, 3 forced 1, 6, this will now have to be the 1, 4 option. This will be 2 of 5. We have 9 and 3 to be placed. The 3 is already in this column, so 9 is here, 3 is here. That's going to force a 3 into this cell. Leaves behind 1, 4 for this option. This 3 and this 3 point out to this cell as the last place for a 3 in that space. That puts in this 1. The 1 puts in a 4, puts in a 1, puts in a 4, puts in a 1. These 1s are going to come over to this cell. I think is the forced location for that 1. There's a 1 here, and there's a 1 here. This has to be 3 and 6 based on other stuff we placed in the grid, at least behind 7, 8, 7, 8. Before we go too far, let's look at the rest of our progress. We have a 6, 9 to go in this box. That's not too encouraging. we've got a 4 here, a 4 here. This 2, 7 resolves this 2, 7. There's going to be a 7 in this space. This digit over here suggests there's a 5 and a 6. That's going to mean 8 is in the last cell here. The last digit here will be 5 with that. Looking from the left, the 5 cancels, so we got 5 with 4, a 4 in this cell. We have 6, 9 to go, and the 6 is to the left, so this is 9 up top, 6 below. This 9 now forces over here, 7 up above, 9 over there. We got a 7 coming in here. We have a 2 coming from above. We have an 8 going above. And with that being marked from this to 8, we have 3, 7 left over. The 3 is in the column already, so 3 to the left, 7 to the right. That elimination, that's going to leave behind a 1, 9 group over here and a 3, 4 group. Working up into the grid, let's look at a row like this. We've got 2, 7, 4 to place. The 7 is already sort of removed from the cell, so this has to be the 7, last spot for it. 4 and 2 finish that row. That puts in a 2, 8 quickly. This 4 also puts in a 4, 3 quickly. This 3 has 1 cell left for it, and all the 3s are in the grid. We have 2, 6, 8 to go in the space. The 2 is here, and the 6, 8 will come through like this. We have in this whole row 4, 6, 8 to place. 4 and 6 are already in this column, so 8 has to be here. This is the last spot for a 4. 6 and 8 to fill it in. We now have in this space the 8 eliminated, so this has to be a 7, this has to be an 8. Get this being a 7 here. You have 5, 6 for these cells. The 6 is up above, so 5 here, 6 here, 5, 5, 7, 7. This is a 9, puts in the last 9s, puts in a 1, puts in a 1. This will be a 6, 6, and 4, and we finish the puzzle. So a lot of work at the start to really deconvolve the arrows. That started by thinking about the top, thinking about A and B, and working through the center. There were then some key constraints that eliminated the values for C and D and eventually E, and then it solved like a hard, but it's, I guess, simpler. Now the cipher is broken Arrow Sudoku. So really, really great Saturday puzzle. Thanks, Ashish, for writing in. I hope you enjoyed seeing this video and learned some tips and tricks along the way. We'll catch you again soon.